So Hebrews 11, by faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. By his faith he condemned the world and became heir of righteousness that comes by faith. So the story of Noah has always captured our imagination. We even see decor, and people collect Noah's Ark figures, or they do their babies' nursery in Noah's Ark and that kind of thing. So it's always a story that's kind of grabbed our minds and our hearts. There are even songs, I know you guys know, we didn't do it in worship because I didn't think it was very worshipful. But you know the song, "The Lord told Noah there's going to be a floody, floody." Does everyone know that song?
Heard it.
Get your children out of the muddy, muddy children of the Lord. So it's a real happy song. The animals, they came on, by deuces, deuces. So it's a really happy, happy song. But the event that is actually happening is not the animals that came on. If we were really writing that song to depict this, it would be something like, the people were sinful, so sinful and evil, evil, right? That's what it was all about. It wasn't about the twosies and get your children out of the mud. It was about the world was so evil that God had to do something. And so I think the things that really capture our imagination, I think the size, the enormity of the ark, I think the whole question of the animals, that they gathered together and they coexisted in this ark. I think that is another thing that kind of captures our imagination. But the most amazing thing, I think, is the faith that Noah had. So let's just cover the first two, and then we're going to really talk about Noah's faith. So how big was Noah's ark? God gave Noah the dimensions for the ark in cubits. And it's, quote, "And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits." And that is from Genesis 6:15. How long was the ark? At approximately 510 feet long, it would take nearly 1.5 football fields to equal the ark's length. Big enough that NASA could lay 3 space shuttles nose to tail on the ark's roof. How tall was the ark? The roof was more than 50 feet from the ground, higher than a modern 4-story house. Plenty of space for 3 extra tall inner decks, as the Bible so describes it. There were truckloads of cargo space, the same storage capacity, listen to this, as about 450 standard semis. You know the tractor trailer? 450. A standard livestock trailer holds about 250 sheep, so the ark had the capacity to hold at least 120,000 sheep. Of course, they only had 2, but they had a whole lot of other animals. The other thing that I think boggles our mind is that this is such a huge ship. How would it even float? That this was the biggest wooden ship maybe ever. And you can kind of dismiss it and say, well, that's how you know that it's not true. That's how you know that it's a myth. Because something that big wouldn't float. But in actuality, in the 1400s, the Chinese people had treasure ships that they say were almost as big as the ark was. So we know from actual history, like after Christ history, we know that there were ships that would actually float. So Noah, as he was building this, everyone around him was constantly ridiculing, making fun of him, and they thought he was crazy. Imagine if there was someone in D.C. who was building an ark. And in fact, we used to drive by, I guess it's still there, Going to West Virginia, a man was building an ark, supposedly to the size. And then there's one in Kentucky. That's who I got these pictures from. There is an ark that was built in Kentucky that you can go visit. But imagine that someone built an ark in D.C. And Ken's going to help me out here just because it's so few of us. I wrote the skit and it's goofy, but come on up, Ken. And he's going to play Noah, and I'm going to play Nancy Pelosi. Okay? Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. She is pretty much the spokesperson for the Democrat Party. All right? So, I'm Nancy Pelosi. Hello, Noah, you've been asked to come before Congress to tell us what this ark is for.
Ms. Pelosi, I can't. It's a secret.
You don't have to say Nancy Pelosi. Just say.
So I can't. It's a secret. I'm ad-libbing.
Oh, okay. We're very concerned that it is a matter of national security. Can't you give us a clue?
Yes I can. How long can you tread water?
Not very long.
Well, the other option, ma'am, is to get on the boat. You will have to enter 2 by 2, a Republican and a Democrat. So pick a Republican to go with you.
A Republican?
Yep.
How about an independent?
No.
Green Party?
No.
No?
No.
Where's my phone? Oh, my phone's up there.
What are you doing?
Amazon.com. I just ordered my water wings. Confirm. Thank you. So imagine if someone was doing something like that, everyone would think they were crazy, right?
Yep.
So the animals. In Genesis it says, bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and a female, into the boat with you, to keep them alive during the flood. Pairs of every kind of bird and every kind of animal and every kind of small animal that scurries along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. Be sure to take on board enough food for your family and for all the animals. So the Genesis passage very clearly says what he's supposed to do. Get a male and female, all of the air-breathing, ground-dwelling animals. And you know that most animals sense danger anyway. It's how a dog will start to go bonkers when you don't even know it's going to storm, but they can sense it. So animals knew that something was amiss, and they were drawn to this enormous floating barn, basically. This is from ChristianAnswers.net. I know there are those scientists in us that say it just couldn't happen. It explains, did a big study on the actual ark. It explains that as many as 50,000 animals, including creatures that may now be extinct, could have fit on board the ark. These would not have needed to be the largest or even the adult specimens, which that had not occurred to me. That it wouldn't have to be the full-grown hippo. It would bring a baby hippo, right?
Right.
There are really only a very few large animals, and these could be represented by young ones. Assuming the average animal to be about the size of a sheep, and using a railroad car for comparison, we know, this is from ChristianAnswers.net, we know that the average double-deck rail car could accommodate 240 sheep. 3 trains, hauling 69 cars each, would have ample space to carry the 50,000 animals, filling only 37% of the ark. This would leave an additional 361 cars, or enough to make 5 trains of 72 cars each to carry all the food and baggage, plus Noah's family of 8 people. But the most fascinating part of the story, now that we've talked about the boat, we've talked about the animals, the most fascinating part is how much faith Noah had.
Yeah.
Even though he was 600 years old, which is a pretty fascinating number in itself. I think the things that Noah really shines in is that he listened intently, he believed fervently, and he obeyed exactly. There is a difference in listening and hearing. And Noah was listening for God's voice. In hearing, this is really interesting because a lot of people use these interchangeably and they're not. Hearing is accidental. I would hear something slam shut. But listening is, if I'm listening for someone to come into the house, I'm listening for the door to slam shut. Hearing is involuntary. Listening is voluntary. Hearing is effortless. You do nothing to be able to hear something. But listening, you have to be very intentional about listening. And Noah had seen God move before. If you recall, David said last week when he was talking about Enoch, Enoch came from a pretty impressive lineage. He had seen Enoch, who was taken up with God. He never died. God took him up because he had walked so closely with God. Enoch had Methuselah. Methuselah lived to be 967 years old. So he knew that God would move. He knew that they were living in a dangerous time, that God really had to do something. There needed to be some intervening.
Yeah.
So he was focused on the task at hand, even though he was hearing what everyone was saying around him. It says in Hebrews, in holy fear he built an ark. The fear of the Lord is something that you should have. It's not a fear of man. It's not being fearful. If you know the right thing, but you opt out, that would be spiritual suicide. I choose. I hear, and I'm listening for God, and I know what he said, but I'm not up to the task, and so you opt out. You always volunteer. You volunteer to follow God. He never forces you to follow him. Noah was really intentional about how he was operating for God. It says that he was 500 years old when he got the message to build an ark. For 100 years, he preached. Did you know Noah was a preacher? A lot of people think he was maybe a boat builder. He was a preacher. For 100 years, he was preaching to people, and they still mocked him and didn't believe him. So he was deliberate and calculated in everything he did for God. He was driven and obsessed because it was bigger than him living. It was bigger than saving his family. It was bigger than the animals that would be saved. It wasn't about building a boat. It was about saving humanity. He was hearing his critics, but he was listening to God. And some of us do the exact opposite, don't we? We hear God, we say, I think he's saying, don't go there, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And yet we're listening to people who say, oh yeah, you should do that. You should totally do that. If you ask the majority of people if they live by faith, if they were honest, they would probably always say no. I don't live by faith. I live by what I think I'm supposed to do. I live by my flesh. We live our lives based on fact. Most of our decisions are for our flesh. I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. Oh, that burger looks good, better than that broccoli, I'm going to eat that. Your everyday decisions, a lot of them are just made in the flesh. But the advertising industry that is not spirit-driven relies on our having faith. Did you know that? Have you ever thought of it like that? They spend millions, maybe billions, trying to convince us to put faith in their products. And who do we listen to? The advertising industry believes, or they hope, that we live our lives by faith. And they're crying out, saying, have faith. Believe this is going to happen. And a lot of times we'll try it. We exercise more faith in the stuff of our lives and the stuff that the advertisers tell us than we do sometimes in our actual faith. I got some ads here, and Isaac, if you go back to that first one, and they're all this funny, but the one that says wash away fat, oh, I forgot the tapeworms. There you go. Wash away fat and years of age. This is a bar of soap.
I'll have one.
Wash away fat and years of age. I have to read it because you can't read that. With Lamar Reducing Soap, the new discovery. Results quick and amazing. Nothing internal to take. Reduce any part of the body without affecting the other parts. No dieting or exercise. Be as slim as you wish. Acts like magic in reducing something. Abdomen, ungainly ankles, unbecoming wrists. Something's wrong with your shoulders here. Or any superfluous fat on the body. Sold direct to you by mail, postpaid, on a money-back guarantee. 2 cents a cake or 3 cakes of soap for 4 cents. 1 to 3 cakes usually accomplishes the purpose. So they're asking a lot of us. That we would have that kind of faith. When we get into a car, we have faith as we drive down the road. When we come to a red light, we stop at the red light. When the light turns green, if there's a cross lane, our faith, we don't see it turn red. Our faith is that will turn red and people will stop. Right? How about getting in a plane? I am not an engineer. I do not understand aerodynamics. I do not understand how a plane can stay in the air. It's too heavy, right? So we have faith in things. Faith, and Isaac, you can skip forward past the ads. I'll pause 1 minute because there are some funny ones here. Can you move forward on the ads? You've won him, now you must keep him. I think that's soap also. More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. This one where he's blow in her face and she'll follow you anywhere. That is not true. Christmas morning, she'll be happier with a Hoover. And they want you to believe that. They want you to have faith to go buy her a Hoover. What's the next one, Isaac? Oh, here's the real Big Mac in the advertisement. Oh, and here's the one that actually comes to you in the box.
Exactly.
But they want, by faith, you're thinking it's going to be the first Big Mac. Right? Next. This is pretty cute. Clinically shown true. She's 51, looks 25. No, she doesn't. But at any rate, they want you to have faith and believe that. Right? So faith is things hoped for and yet not seen. We are hoping that that car does not come through the intersection, but we haven't seen it stop. Sometimes a car will be racing to the intersection, and we think, they're not going to stop. Well, I have a green light, so I'm going to go ahead anyway. By faith, we go ahead. Noah listened intently so he could discern what God was saying. Noah had amazing faith. Amazing. When God spoke to him, he knew it was God's voice. And he believed what he was saying. He believed God. Fervently, that was like with great passion. He believed. His faith wasn't just an intellectual, yes, I believe there's a God, I believe he created the universe, I believe he raised my great-great-grandfather up and let my other grandfather live. He can intellectually believe all that. But this required more faith than that. So how did Noah obey? He obeyed exactly. Exactly. And how many times do we think God is asking us to do that? It's like, but I don't really have to do all of that. I'll do some of that. What if Noah said, I'll build some of the boat. I'll build some of the levels. Noah obeyed, along with his family. All the other humans alive at the time disagreed with him. All of them disagreed. The intent of human hearts was evil continually. That's what they say in Genesis. The intent of the human hearts was evil continually. God went so far as to repent of ever making man. And this doesn't even compare. But sometimes you hear these sad stories where a parent has abandoned the child and they just get up and leave. And you hear fights and things like that, and they say, I wish I never had you. Isn't that the most vile, poisonous thing a parent can say? I wish I'd never had you. And that's what God was saying. I wish I'd never made you. That is unbelievably heart-wrenching. He was going to utterly destroy man, all but one. If others believed, they would have been saved. And I wonder, they don't talk much about Noah's family. I wonder if they all were totally on board. Or they were just like, well, it's our culture, we obey. If Father says we're doing this, then we're doing this. It was a very tough thing to believe and to obey. And you remember talking about God wishing to save some or all? You remember the story of Sodom and Gomorrah? Where Abraham is asked, oh Lord, if I can find 50 who believe, will you save them? And the Lord says yes. And then he goes down, 45, yes, I will still save them. 25, and he goes down incrementally. He gets down to 10. Lord, if this whole town, I can find 10 people, will you still save it? And the Lord said that he would. It's interesting that then when the angels came on Sodom and Gomorrah, the angels came and told them. He tries to get others. He tries to even get his daughter's fiancés, which I wonder would have made up the number 10. That's not scriptural. It just occurs to me that they specifically mentioned that he tried to get others to go along. Lot tried to get others to go along with him, and they wouldn't. And you know what happened? This is from Scripture. Then the Lord rained down fire and flaming tar upon the entire town. Flaming tar. Have you ever gotten burned by a glue stick? You know how something hot sticks to you and you can't get it off? When you get like a glue stick glue on you, you just have to wait for it to cool off. You can't do anything. Flaming tar goes way beyond that. He rains down flaming tar. But God doesn't desire destruction. He wouldn't destroy a righteous people. But only Noah was found to be righteous. Noah understood Paul's comment when it says, though everyone else in the world is a liar, God is not. And even Paul quotes the Psalms. He says, do you remember what the book of Psalms says about this? That God's words will always prove true and right, no matter who questions them. God's word is always true. Noah listened, he believed, and Noah obeyed. And back to the Hebrews writer, he says he was warned of things not yet seen. Noah had seen many things that would make him believe in God, and yet he had never seen rain. That's an amazing thing. That God says it's going to do a thing that he doesn't even know what it is. But he had seen and experienced God's power before. They say that experience beats an argument every time. That's not scriptural, that's someone smart said that. It might have been David or someone said that experience beats out an argument every time. If someone doesn't believe in the power of God, if they experience the power of God, then anyone can come and argue with them. It doesn't matter, I've experienced it. You can argue, but I've experienced it. How did Noah believe? Hoped for and not seen. Rain was a thing that had not yet been seen. There's no record of rain up until this point. That's an amazing thing. That it said that mist rose up from the ground. That's how all the plants were watered and everything. The mist would come up from the earth. No mention of rain again until Genesis 7:12, when it's talking about the flood. So it made Noah seem extra crazy when he's telling people he's going to do a thing that no one even knew existed. If you go back to Genesis 1, in case you don't believe it, then God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Thus God made the expanse and divided the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse. And it was so. I kind of get this vision of like a terrarium. Have you ever seen, like, I think that's what it's called, when they put plants inside an enclosed thing and it creates its own atmosphere? For the Lord God had not caused it to rain, and there was no man to till the ground. Genesis 2, verse 5. So this water is going to come down from the sky, and no one had ever experienced it. So what's the moral of the story? One man was righteous in his generation. He knew God, he knew his ways, he knew his voice, he listened, he believed, and he obeyed when God spoke. There are a lot of writings on this, if you ever care to look it up. A lot of Christian biblical scholars say that the flood is a picture of the salvation through Christ. The ark was planned by God, and there's only one way in to the ark. One door, he's very specific, one door into the ark. One way of salvation. Interestingly, there are other cultures that talk about a great flood. No, they don't talk about Noah necessarily, although the Islamic faith has a person called Nuh, N-U-H, sounds a lot like Noah, and they tell the story of a great flood. But other cultures talk about a great flood, which tells me this is historical fact. This isn't just a myth, that cultures from everywhere are talking about this great flood. That's in their lore. That's in their history. Some talk about the ark also being like the resurrection of Christ, that the waters bury the old ways, and then Noah is raised with a new life, starting anew. And today, we live in crazy times. I mean, maybe every generation says, oh, it's never been this bad. Oh, we have... There have been a lot of other horrible times. There are people who've lived through the Holocaust and the Depression, and, oh, it's never been this bad. Maybe it has. It's just different. But it's crazy. And it's a challenge. And it's not about America. We need to get our mindset outside of that. I was riding with an Uber guy. I don't know how we got on this topic. But we talked about how, oh, the country's so divided. He said, yeah, he always gets, because we're in D.C., he'll get one or the other person sitting in his Uber, and they'll start talking about politics. They want to know his politics and all that. And I said something about, yeah, the divisiveness is horrible. And he said, it is in every culture. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. He was from Burkina Faso. And he said, in my culture, in my country, everyone looks the same. But they divide up tribally. And if you find out someone's from the other tribe, you hate them. You hate everything about them. They're, horrible people. They're dirty. Don't let them into your house. He said every culture decides what's going to divide them. And it's so true that the evil in fallen man will set us to divide ourselves. Race, sex, politics. I'm from the South, you're from the North. So we have to seek God, listen for his voice. When he sent the rainbow, he said he would never again destroy the earth. But we have something to do. We have responsibility to do what we can. And I know that there are some huge tasks there. But listen for what God would have you do. And maybe it's small things. Maybe it's not. We should walk in confidence with the holy fear that if we hear God's voice and he asks us to do something, we don't go that route of spiritual suicide and say, yeah, but that's just too hard, I'm opting out. Yes, we have the option to opt out, but look what can happen if you opt in. Amen? We could all be more like Noah. Listen intently, know the difference between hearing and listening, believe fervently, believe in things hoped for, not yet seen. Obey exactly, because God's designs are always better than ours. And I'll close on this. Betty was in the office this week, and we were doing slides, actually, for worship. and we were trying to match one slide with another. So we were looking at all these different like filters and things that you can change in the picture. And it just, God speaks to you in so many different ways. But there was, it said light or dark, it said color, it said intensity, and that kind of thing. But it said saturation. And that word just really stuck in me. And I thought, that's what we need to do. When you, in a picture, you can pick the middle line, and then you go, not saturation, and it like sucks all the pictureness out of the picture. And if you go all the way to saturation, everything is really, really intense. So it's not kind of red, it's really red, it's saturated, it's as red can get. That's how I want to be. I'm not saturated. On a good day, I'm maybe in the middle. They can kind of see Jesus in me. Wow, that's cool. But what if you were so saturated with Him that you walked into a room and all they saw was Jesus?